If you blink, you might miss it, but it won't miss you.
It's nothing but a speed trap.
This speed camera on DC's 295 is one of the district's most productive and controversial, generating more than $26 million in just 2.5 years, charging premium penalties in a work zone where there's often no evidence of work, raising serious questions about the district's motives.
The government is gouging its citizens. It's just too much money.
Lydia Rosas got a $300 fine for going 59, a speed that normally wouldn't trigger a ticket. But in May, the district lowered the speed to 40 and doubled the fines, making it a work zone 24/7. But where's the work?
Since August, the I-Team has repeatedly driven this stretch of highway looking for signs of a work zone. And every time, no cones, no equipment, no work.
So we started asking questions about sign placement, disputed tickets, fines where there's no work, revenue generated, and maintenance records. Nearly 3 months and 4 sets of data later, and we still don't have the full picture because the numbers don't match. For example, in July, the DMV says the camera issued 24,000 tickets, but some Metro Police records show only 10,000.
They do not want you to know that the speed limit is dropped to 40 miles an hour.
Retired D.C. Fire Lieutenant Stephen Sandy got a $200 ticket for going 53 in what's ordinarily a 50-mile-an-hour zone.
Any place else in the country, the speed limit would be 55. But to drop it down to 40 at that point, there's no reason other than revenue.
He says if they really wanted motorists to slow down, they'd make it obvious.
Not a cone, not a guy standing out there with a shovel, or nothing that would alert you. And there absolutely is nothing that would alert you before the speed camera.
He's right. The work zone sign, so small that it could be obscured by a passing truck, is posted where there is no construction. And nearly 9 seconds beyond that sign is the speed camera.
Everything that can be wrong in an automatic or automated speed camera program is being done in the District of Columbia.
DC's Department of Transportation insists it's all about the safety of motorists and workers. John Townsend and AAA challenge that notion.
Nearby jurisdiction, which is the state of Maryland, they don't necessarily drop the speed limit in work zones, especially for long-term work zones.
We looked at the numbers. In Maryland, the speed camera on 495 near Suitland Parkway, a much larger construction zone that Townsend says sees nearly 200,000 cars a day, ticketed about 4,000 motorists in July. According to DMV, the speed camera in D.C., with about half the traffic, issued 24,000 tickets in the same month. Townsend says the Maryland numbers prove the point. Signs adequately warn drivers. They slow down, as evidenced by a 75% drop in tickets between July 2017 and July of 2019. In D.C., he says the opposite is happening.
We suspect that this is all designed to increase the number of tickets and to produce millions of dollars in revenue in the name of traffic safety.
Recently, D.C. shifted authority over the cameras from Metro PD to DDOT. Townsend says this will make things worse.
When it was being controlled by law enforcement, people could put up with some of the excesses because they trusted the police department. They don't have any trust in DDOT.
As for Lydia, she may fight the ticket, but she wants the district to realize that these fines can put an average person at risk.
This is just one of about 120 speed cameras in the district that in 2018 brought in more than $100 million. One of the reasons we started looking into the lack of signage was because 8 of our photographers got ticketed by that one camera, and they didn't even realize they were in a work zone. Metro Police declined an interview, but we did sit down with the deputy mayor in charge of infrastructure. As you might imagine, we had a lot of questions.
Is the district intentionally not adequately putting up signs to notify drivers that it's dropped to 40 in an area where there's no evidence of work because it's a cash cow?
Hear her response to that and much more tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
This speed camera on DC's 295 rakes in the cash, often ticketing motorists for work zone violations where there's no visible work. Lucinda Babers is the deputy mayor who oversees the agencies that run the program. Where does all that money go?
Revenue is not the focus of the agencies that run the photo enforcement program.
Since its inception, this camera's brought in more than $34 million, one camera. I mean, that does incentivize certain people, perhaps not you, to keep it going. That's a lot of money.
We just don't focus on it. What we focus on is Vision Zero.
Vision Zero is D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's initiative to eliminate traffic fatalities. Babers says the sole purpose of the speed camera and the fines, sometimes as high as $800, is safety. Motorists say this is a speed trap that is simply being used to gouge them for money. What evidence do you have that proves that this is actually about public safety?
So you want me to respond to residents and non-residents, because they all use 295, who are speeding, who are violating the law. You want me to make a response. I find that troubling.
Well, they find it troubling that there is inadequate signage notifying them that they're in a 40-mile-an-hour zone and they're getting $400 and $600 and $800 tickets. Babers contends if motorists obeyed the law, this wouldn't be an issue, and said the district adheres to federal regulations. We could not find those regulations or any law that would allow for doubling penalties in a work zone when no work is occurring. Babers' office says they will provide those to us.
I think we all believe it is our God-given right to speed. And so anytime that something stops us from doing that, such as getting a violation, we cry foul. And so whether you're in the work zone, you're not in the work zone, as long as you're following the speed limit, I'm not sure why we're sitting here discussing it. There is no ticket.
We're sitting here discussing it because the sign that notifies drivers that the speed limit has been reduced to 40 miles an hour is almost invisible. It can be obscured by any large passing vehicle. So the issue here is the district intentionally not adequately putting up signs to notify drivers that it's dropped to 40 in an area where there's no evidence of work because it's a cash cow?
My thought process is, well, when they go into a school zone.
But this isn't a school zone. This is a freeway.
But hold up, Lisa. When they go into a school zone and there is no evidence of a child, because you're telling me there is no evidence of cones or whatever, and there is no evidence of a child, but school is in session, should we then find it fine for them to just go 25 because
no,
hey,
because
there's no evidence
there's
of a child
there. The school is the evidence. On the freeway, there is no evidence of construction or work or anything. It is a pristine freeway with no visual cue to a motorist that there is anything happening there. It's perfect.
Okay, so what we'll absolutely do is we can absolutely take another look.
We're working to get answers to all of the lingering questions, including how the $26 million generated by the 295 camera was spent. We'll follow up with Deputy Mayor Babers. Watch our full investigation on WJLA.com under the 7 on Your Side tab.
I can't help but think that this is, at least in part, about revenue generation.
This speed camera on DC's 295 raked in $26 million in 2.5 years, ticketing drivers for 24/7 work zone violations in an area where there's often no visible work. For months, the 7 on Your Side I-team randomly drove this stretch of highway, looking for any signs of work, which either seemed to end prior to where the sign said the zone began, or there was no sign of work at all. Do you think that this particular camera on the 295 should be more closely looked at and evaluated?
Oh, absolutely. It should be more closely looked at and evaluated, and action should be taken to give fair notice. This should not be a gotcha situation.
Ward 3 D.C. Council member Mary Che oversees the Transportation Committee. After watching our investigation, she fired off this letter to the Department of Transportation, asking for a review of the top 10 revenue-grossing cameras. She wants justification for the lower speeds and evidence that drivers are given proper notice of the presence of a camera, with particular attention to the camera the I-team identified on the 295.
If everything's working as it should, why aren't the fines going down? If we really wanted people to know, let's get lights around, work zone coming up, speed zone, give people a full notice. And really, do you lower it to 40 miles when there's no work for long periods of time, again, I think that that's overreaching.
We've asked the city for documentation regarding the work, sign placement, camera calibration, and a litany of other items, including any evidence they have that lowering the speed and upping the fines on this stretch of road has made it safer.
This is a problem, and I do not like people to have suspicion about what our motives are. I don't like to erode confidence in the honesty and integrity of the government. And if this has that effect, we at least have to say, okay, there may be something here. Let us look into it and then report back the justification for continuing what we're doing or to change what we're doing.
Lisa Fletcher, ABC 7 News.